how you doing? This is John, and welcome to John's Long Box. I'm here with Joe M Sonntag. How you doing?
Good, man. How you doing?
Wow, you're like the first guest I pronounced your name correctly in like months. I've been on a bad roll.
Yeah, no, you did a good job, Sontag. Yeah, nailed it.
Send me a link. You have an active campaign right now, correct?
Yes, I do.
All right. Yes. Send me the link so I can put it in the comments so I can bring it up whenever we talk about it. That's a failure on my part. I should have brought it up. But anyway, let's get back to talking.
Not a problem. I'll do that while we're talking.
Sure. So, I always have a policy that every video is somebody's first video. So why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us who you are.
All right, 2 seconds. Let me drop this.
Yeah, I know.
I'll get this link all copied for you and drop it into the private chat.
All right. How you doing? We got Prater. How you doing, Prater? Everything looks good. Everything sounds good.
Hail, Prater. Good to see you, brother.
Yeah.
For those that don't know me, I am Joe M Sonntag, or just Joe Sonntag. I threw the M in there because it sounded cool, and that's all that matters. No, I put the M in my signature with the JMS, so I figured might as well put that out there in my name so people knew why I was doing that. But honestly, when I was in a band for 10 years under everybody just knew me as Joe Sonntag. And I remember when I first started getting back into art again, I kind of wanted to separate the band persona of who I was on social media and then the art persona of who I was. So I ended up, I opened up a site or started a site on Facebook under Joe M Sonntag, just including my middle initials. I think that's just kind of how it came to be. I've been collecting comics and in love with the comic industry since I was probably 8 or 10 years old. It's somewhere around there. I know I started drawing around when I was 8. Got into comics when I was 10. Probably seriously got into the art of drawing comics when I was 12 years old. And that's what I wanted to do for most of my teen years. I spent the time sitting in my room hours a day drawing anything that I could draw, looking at all my favorite artists at the time. Jim Lee, Rob Liefeld, Mark Silvestri, all the big names of the 90s.
What year were you 8 years old? So what year is this? So Joe
that's
Sonntag?
Yeah, true. So I was born in 82.
Okay.
I was in 90 I was 8. Right?
I just feel so old right now. Bye everybody.
I was 12 years old when Image started, and that was about the time I was getting into comics, right around that 92 era or time, year wise, and that was the year I met a kid whose name was also Joe, and he could draw and he collected comics. And this is kind of how I got into loving comics, because the dude was probably about a year older than me that I can think of, and I'd never met anybody before that could draw and draw good. I was drawing, I was doodling as a kid does at that age.
Right. Yeah, we all did. Anybody who's into comic books, we doodled.
Right, exactly. I probably had some kind of raw talent, but nothing that was spectacular or anything, And I met this kid, Joe, and he could actually draw because he had the book, How to Draw the Marvel Way.
Yeah, great
and
book.
So he'd read the book, and he had gone through all the steps and everything. So he could draw figures, he could draw poses. And I remember seeing that and just being really blown away. I was like, man, this is awesome. I want to do this. So I started, gearing my drawing more towards that. He showed me a bunch of stuff, and got me kind of in love with drawing comic book characters more. And at the time, I knew of comics, I had them, but I wasn't in love with them, and he had an actual collection. So at the time I had some stuff that maybe we brought home from the library back in the day, where my mom could go in and buy, the old beat up comic books for 10 cents a piece or something when they'd be trying to get rid of the old comics or whatnot. And that's kind of what I had to go with, and this is a guy that had collections of, long boxes of books, bagged and boarded, right? Pristine collection, mint condition kind of books. And he would start pulling out the X-Men books, and he'd be like, you got to check out my favorite artist, Jim Lee. He's like, I want to be Jim Lee one day. I'm going to work at Marvel and do all this stuff, So I'm like, oh, wow, this is cool, So I heard of Jim Lee through him, and I got into X-Men. And of course, because I was highly influenced at the time by Joe, I wanted to be an artist, and Jim Lee became my favorite artist as well, So I just dove in, feet first, head first, whatever you want to say, and just never looked back. And probably a couple of years later, Joe kind of got out of comics and wanted to do stuff, other stuff and just move in different directions. But I couldn't. Like I was firmly, instaunched in wanting to read comics, wanting to collect them, live in that fantasy world, and then also wanting to draw comics. And then the 90s rolled around, like the mid 90s, and Image boomed, and I was really kind of getting a feel for drawing, understanding how to draw, following my favorite artists. And it was one of those things that just, it wouldn't leave me, like I was die hard on wanting to follow in the footsteps of my favorite artists like Rob Liefeld. I was reading that he became a professional at like 18, 19. So that was my goal.
Yeah, he was a kid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was my goal at like 14, 15 years old. I was like, by the time I get 18, 19 years old, I want to be working in the industry. Like that's what I thought I was going to do. And for the most part, I thought, I worked at that very, very hard until things happen in life, right?
Life gets in the way is what I always say.
Other stuff happens, like you get a driver's license and you go out and you stop kind of paying attention to your craft, and that's kind of what I did. Music has always been a big part of my life. The small town I grew up in Gobles, Michigan, I happened to have two really, really good friends that were fantastic musicians. One was a great guitarist, was playing Metallica at like 14 years old, solos and stuff, just blew us away. And my other friend, another Joe that I met, was a great drummer.
Is everybody named Joe in your town?
I tell you what, I've known a lot of other Joes in my life. In fact,
excuse me,
my friend Joe that was the drummer in the band later on in years when we were in our 20s. And the bass player, the original bass player we had in the band, his name was Joe as well.
Right. You should have named the band the Joes, like the Ramones.
It was a running joke, right? Like our band was three Joes and a Matt. That's what it was. Joe, and Matt. Like we were foursome. Like it was a funny running joke.
Yeah, that is funny.
But there were other things that pulled my interest away from comics. As much as I was in love with comics and drawing and stuff, I was probably pretty naive to the fact, like I thought I was just the most talented dude.
Right.
Like yeah. I'm drawing things, and I had a natural talent to draw, no doubt, and I was better than anybody else that I knew, right? In my vicinity, if anybody else talent wise. And so people were always like, oh, you're so good and this and that. And so in my mind, I was just like, okay, cool. Like I'm going to break into the industry in a few years. No big deal, and then the hard, cold reality hits you in the face when you start actually showing your work off and you realize you wasted a lot of time not really getting to where you needed to be. So I was in and out of comics, disappointment. I'd just go and do music for a while. Like, all right, the comic thing ain't happening right now. I'm gonna jump into this band, have fun. And I basically did that for a number of years until I started working on the book I'm working on now, the original version of it, in my early 20s, and try to get that picked up. And
the name of your book is
Reaper Destroyer. By the way, if you guys don't know, I'm Joe M Sonntag. I'm the creator and artist of Reaper Destroyer. Live on Indiegogo right now, almost to $68,000 on that campaign. So
nice.
It's insane. Thank you. So I went through, trying to get that picked up originally, and took it to conventions. Had people look at it, and it was kind of just one of those things where it was kind of a no-go. And at the time, I didn't know too much about anything. I didn't know too much about how to break in as an independent or how to do anything except say, hey, here's my book. Publish me, So I kind of took a lot of rejection, not hard as in it made me quit, but I got kind of sick of going through the process of trying to get into the industry, getting turned down. Because I go to the conventions, and artists are great. They'll be like, hey, this looks great. You work on this, people would tell me I have natural talent for storytelling, but work on your faces, work on this, but looks great, keep doing it, and I'd be like, sweet. You go to an editor and then the editor is just like, it's almost like that scene in Batman, the 1989 Batman, where the Joker's going through Vicky Vale's portfolio and he's just like, crap. This I like.
I know that feeling. Yeah, I know.
And that's pretty much what it was like. Editors would just, oh man, it was horrible. And it kind of got to a point where music was becoming a little bit more exciting. Things were happening, shows were going on. There were people. You get to an age where you see the people coming out to the bars or small venues that you would play, and you're like, wow, like people are really digging what we're doing. It was just kind of a more exciting life at that point. And there were some personal things that happened in my life that kind of pushed me in that direction. And I went and did music for 10 years and had a blast doing it. I had a really fantastic band named Mine Enemies Fall. We toured all across the country, played some fantastically big shows, awesome shows, met a lot of rock stars, just live that life for 10 years throughout my 20s and early 30s, and just full on, the cliches, drugs, rock and roll, women, all that kind of stuff. And when that kind of was dying down and I decided I kind of wanted to settle down, I wanted to marry my girlfriend. We knew we wanted to start a family. It was kind of a lifestyle that wasn't indicative of, having kids, really. We were out on the road all the time. And I at that point, my guitarist had a daughter with his girlfriend, and I really saw the relationship that he had with his young daughter, and it was one of those things that kind of really changed my life, just seeing my friend just become a dad and just see how that changed him, and it became one of those things where I really wanted it. We've been doing it for a long time. It was very successful as far as independent goes. I enjoyed my time being out on the road and having fun and traveling and touring and all that. But I just knew that it was kind of time to try to do something else. And I fell back into my love of comic books and got back into the industry. And my partner, my co-host on Ott and Stuff, Sean Arendt, he was like, dude, you should bring back Reaper Destroyers. Like, that book was killer back in the day. He's like, right now is a great time for independent creators to get into the scene. And he told me about this crowdfunding thing, and I didn't know anything about it. And he kind of like encouraged me. Like, he's like,
people are crowdfunding comic books. That's never going to catch on.
Yeah. Well, it's a funny thing because, back in the day, to me, the only way to get into the industry as an independent creator was to like get picked up by like Image or smaller publications like Arcana. There was a company called Arcana back in the day that really published a lot of independents as well. And so that was kind of it. You had to make something and show it off, and hopefully get picked up. And now with this crowdfunding thing that I was hearing about, it's like, you kind of skip that, and he was showing me all these examples. Like Comicsgate was becoming big at that time. Like it was becoming a thing, like all this stuff was happening. And he was showing me campaigns that Malin was doing and EVS, and obviously those are big names, giant numbers, right? But when you see that, you're like, oh shit, like that's interesting. Like it could happen. Yeah. Like that's something that possibly I could do. So I spent 2 years.
I see Eric July, and I see the numbers that he's making, and it just makes me think like, I'm not unrealistic. I'm going to be launching a campaign next year, but it just shows you how high the ceiling is. Like why would anybody?
Absolutely.
I see Eric July, and I'm like, good. It shows us how far we could go, and
it sets a goal. It sets a goal to try to achieve, to try to reach.
Possible. Yeah.
So I spent 2 years working on retooling my story, getting my art up to par, because I hadn't really drawn.
You're writing it also. So you're doing everything.
Yeah. Yep. Writing it.
Cool. To me, that is the purest comic book. One guy doing his whole image. I was just born handsome, so I don't have the ability.
Same here. I understand that burden.
Oh yeah, it's Mr. Modest over here. He's a rock star. He's handsome. He can write. He can draw. Yeah. And listen to that voice. You could be like on a real radio.
That's what people tell me. I'm like, maybe I'll have a career after this if I need to. I don't know.
Yeah. Did you sing in your band?
I was a vocalist.
There you go. Yeah.
Again, heavy metal, so people could be like sing, yell, growl, scream, whatever. But I can sing in real life. I've got my ranges, right? I got a naturally lower voice, so I've got my ranges I can hit. But I enjoy singing. I enjoy singing in general. The metal was fun because that was just a good way to get aggression out. Especially in your 20s, right? 20s and early 30s. You got so much stuff going on, or at least I did, where I needed a place to vent a lot of the anger.
My friends formed bands and stuff.
There you go.
We weren't talented enough to be metal, so that means we became punk rock.
Right.
We don't want to learn all those chords, man. We got 3.
That's why I played with some very fantastic musicians, guitarists, and all of them that could handle the music. I can play the guitar. I acoustic wise, I love playing acoustic.
Oh man!
But I worked with some fantastic musicians throughout the time I was in the band, and I had multiple members come and go throughout the band.
Yeah, it's hard
But
to
I
keep
always
a
had
band together.
really talented guitarists, and it made it really easy to go in and write music with those guys behind you. You throw out ideas, they have theirs, things come together. It's just writing music, I think, is one of the coolest things I've done. Just to be in a room with a group of guys, having a song come together from nothing, from just like a riff. One guy starts a riff and then we start just jamming on it and it grows. Somebody has idea, you go in that direction. I start coming in with improv vocals and sounds, and that pushes the song in a different direction. It's one of the coolest things. Like one of the things I really miss about music is the writing process, and obviously performing. Shows were just awesome. If anybody wants to see, you can go look up Mine Enemies Fall on YouTube and you can watch a bunch of live
Oh, cool.
performances we did, or the music. I've got almost all of our music up on YouTube as well.
I wish I could find the tapes of me and my friend's band. We did one live show and that was the end of it. We fought, and once we actually started to get a modicum of talent, we started like, no, that doesn't sound right. But when we didn't know what we were doing, it was a blast. And then we started to figure out what we were doing, and that was the end of it.
Yeah, it's funny because in comics and in music, it's very similar to me. And I've said this before, like there's two types of creators when in the crowdfunding space. There's ones that want to do it for a hobby because they like it and they just kind of want to put their stuff out there. And then there's the people that want to do it for a living. The ones that do it for a hobby are usually pretty happy, or at least satisfied with a campaign that makes, $3,000 to $5,000. You put out how many ever books you get backed, and then you go make another one, you put that out. Usually sometimes they're not the greatest quality because you're not spending a lot of money on the top tier artists and all that kind of stuff. And then you get the guys that are doing it for a living, like me and anybody that's really putting themselves into it. And this is not throwing shade at anybody out there. You do your thing. Hobbyists, I'm fine with the hobbyists as well as I am with the lifers, I guess, if you want to call them. But there's a difference in the quality of books because they're going to go out and they're going to spend money on the talent. And usually you take money out of your own bank account to get these things going.
Tell me about it. I'm shelling money out of my own bank account to make a comic. Yeah.
Yeah, you do. You sacrifice what you have to do to make stuff good. And my personal philosophy is like, if I'm going to put something out there, I want to make sure that it's professional looking as possible, that you can put it on the shelves right next to Marvel, DC, Image, whatever, and it's going to look like a professional book. It's going to read like a professional book. It's going to feel like a professional book. It was the same thing in music. There are a lot of hobbyist bands out there that just like to do the weekend stuff, go out and party, play at the bars, create a small following in town. You go out and have a show, 50 people come out, you drink, you party. Afterwards, drugs and women and you have a lot of fun, but that's as far as it goes, right? And then there are the bands like me, Mine Enemies Fall, and my boys, where we weren't satisfied with that. We wanted to go farther. We wanted to tour. And instead of sitting here and waiting for some record exec or rep to find us in Kalamazoo, Michigan or something, we were like, let's go out and make them notice us. So we would go out and tour, and we tour everywhere we could tour. And we went from Michigan to California to Texas, all the way back and forth as much as we could on our own dime as much as possible. And I look at that as you don't have success unless you chase success. There are, examples of people out there that just get lucky, and luck is involved in some stuff. Don't get me wrong.
You got to be in the right place at the right time.
Sometimes that's what it is. But a lot of times, like, it's not going to come to you. You got to go out and get it, and you got to put a product out there that's going to be the best.
Luck favors the prepared, as they say in the Incredibles.
Yeah. So I mean, it's music was the same thing. Like, I wanted to make sure we sounded like a professional band, that we performed like a professional band, and we carried ourselves as a professional band. And that meant when you walked into a place where there was a bar and there were 5 people there that didn't know you in Iowa or anything like that, or if you walked into a big venue and people knew who you were, you still walked in with this air of confidence, this kind of cocky confidence, because one, we knew our talents. We knew that we'd go up on stage and it didn't matter who we played with, that we would destroy every other band that was going to play that night. And the people would leave that night buying our merch, buying our music, and remembering who we were, and that's how we approached everything. And we put out a quality product, a professional product that blew people away. There were a lot of people that are like, who are you signed from? Or, like, what tour are you on? And I was like, we're just an independent band. We have a van and a trailer out there. That's how we're traveling right now, So I look at that philosophy wise for music and for comics. Act like what you want to be, put out there what you want to put out there, and people are going to recognize that. They're going to come and follow your stuff and buy your stuff.
Cool. And I bet you were nice to your audience members. You didn't insult them and call them names. And,
oh,
you know, imagine that. Dude, you were a professional.
Love the audience. And here was the thing that I don't think a lot of people understood about the music industry in general when you're a local band or whatever, just you're coming up. So go see a local show, and most bands would get up there, and the sound guy would be like, "You're good to go. You know, like everything's set. Start the show." And maybe the singer gets up there and says, "Hey, we are, you know, blah 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 from this city," you know, and then you start and go into music. The song would stop. There would be silence. The singer doesn't say anything. You go into the next song. Song stops, and there's silence. Singer doesn't say anything. You go into the next song, and you keep on going. And that has no relatability to the audience, right? You're a front man for a reason. The front man is supposed to, one, you're singing the music, right? But your overall job is to interact with the crowd. You want to get them excited, you know?
Yeah.
And so I studied all the live shows of the great metal bands, you know, Pantera, Metallica. I wanted to see, how did they transition from song to song? How did the front man talk to the audience to get them excited, to involve them in the show? And so I approached that, and within the show we did, whether it was a small bar somewhere else, we had a big audience. You know, the big audiences were more fun, obviously, but you actually take that second between songs and you talk to the audience. You know, you get them involved. You get them to make noise. You point out somebody over there that's not paying attention to you. You say, "Hey, you know, dude, over there. You're like, this song's for you." And your girlfriend's sitting there. She's pretty hot. Her tits are big. You know, like that kind of thing. You know, you say whatever you can.
You got an enemy for life for when she's hitting on.
Exactly. You know, and people remember that. You know, they remember that you came through, and it wasn't just like, oh, there's people up there playing a show, making sounds. There's actually people that were putting on a show. And that was the big thing. You're there to put on a show. You're selling yourself. You're selling the music, but you're selling the future legend of who you are. Because they're going to be like, "Hey, remember that band that we saw last month or 2 months ago? They're coming through again. You want to go see them? Yeah, sure. Bring a couple friends." And then they would show up with more people and like, "Oh man, I saw you last, you know, whatever. You guys kicked ass. These are all my friends. We're here to, you know, have a good time." You know, and that's how you do it. That's how you built on the road. You know, blood, sweat, and tears. And that was the difference. That was the big difference between how you bring people in and how you just kind of present something. It's the same thing. If you put a book out there, you're not personable, you don't have a show, people can't get to know you. You know, they might be less willing to back you than someone that you can go on a show like this and they can get to know who you are, and you can joke around and be like, "Oh, by the way, here's my book. And by the way, it's fucking awesome. You know, check it out."
That's the Todd McFarlane method. He said that when he was at a signing, when he was at a comic convention, he made eye contact and he talked to every person that came in line, to the point where he said that he didn't eat and he didn't drink much because he didn't want to have to go to the bathroom. And you know what I mean? This guy took it seriously.
Dude was a beast.
Yeah. What a professional. You know, he loved his fans. He respected his fans. And look at the guy. The guy's got to be the most successful comic book creator in the history of the world as far as making money.
Can I give a shout out real quick to some people in the chat? I see some people that I see on a regular basis in our chat. We got Christopher Bouchard in here as well. Sheldon Martin, John Delarose here on the Steadfast. Good to see you guys in here. I hope everything is going good tonight.
I'm going to have a talk pretty soon.
Oh, nice. He's fun to talk with. I got to get him back on the show too. It's been a second since he and I sat down and had a chat.
Yeah, thank you guys. I'm seeing some new names. I always love to see some new names, you know. So thank you guys. I didn't want to interrupt and say thank you while you were talking.
Well, to that note, all the new people that might be in the chat, please subscribe to the channel. I see you're close to 1,000.
Yeah.
Hell yeah, dude.
You know, for one whole year, I had like 86 subscribers, and it was just me and the same three people talking. So I got to thank War Duke, you know, and for Jeff Hatcher, and Bucky 748. They were my three fans for an entire.
That's how it goes, man.
You know what I mean?
That's how it goes. Hell yeah!
I'm trying to get them on the channel. We could all talk together. Tell them how bad it was at the beginning. You know.
Yeah,
but that's what you're talking about. I'm loyal to my fans, you know.
Absolutely.
You know, you talk to my wife; she'll tell you all the bad things about you, but the one thing she will tell you that is good. That I'm loyal. I'm loyal to all the, you know. You're on my channel. I'm backing your book. That's just the way it is. You know? That
goes a long way too, you know, because people they see honesty, they see loyalty with people, and it does. It goes quite a ways with people. Absolutely.
Is John my dad? I might be. I don't know. Let's see your beard. Let's see your beard.
Yeah, I was gonna say
let's see your beard.
There were those few times in your youth, you know, there's possibility. You know?
I gotta ask you, what's on your shirt? I've been trying to read your shirt, and your microphone is covering.
It's a shirt I got from one of my old jobs. It's a random shirt that people would bring in. I think it's a local 324 Michigan. I think it's a union shirt.
Okay. I thought maybe that was your profession.
No, so I used to work for the city I lived in, running the water. I was in the well division. I was a well technician. And there was a guy that would come in with shirts all the time because we were in a union, and they would just be free shirts, you know? And so I'm like, sure, I'll take a free shirt, wear it to work.
Oh, the reason why I ask is I'm IBEW union electrician. So,
oh, okay. Gotcha.
So I was like, all right, yeah.
My union really didn't do jack for us, to be honest with you. It was like I'm like, they basically stole money for us because we paid our yearly dues or whatever it is, you know? And they really didn't do anything except, you know, we had a good contract, I'll say that, but it wasn't like when I grew up and everyone's talking about unions, like, oh, you get in a union job, you know. I remember I finally did it, and I'm just like, this is not all it's cracked up to be. But the shirt is comfortable. That's why I still wear it. It's a very comfortable, lightweight shirt, and it's,
okay.
I look good in gray too, you know.
Yeah, it looks good on you. You look like a guy that could be on the job with me, you know.
There you go.
Maybe the channel locks. We got work to do.
Yeah.
So I was just curious. So, Reaper Destroyer. You said you created this as a kid, and now you came back to it.
Yeah, I created it when I was, how old was I? I was probably in my early 20s when I created the character.
Okay. That's a kid to me. The older I get, the early 20s is
true. I've seen some like 20-year-olds, 21-year-olds, you know, at this age, at being 41, almost 42, and they look like teenagers still. I'm like, did I look like that when I was 21? Like, you look like you're still in high school. Yeah, so I was probably.
Let me just address market. My dad
absolutely.
was retired CWA, so I will never say anything bad about CWA. They put food on my table, you know, till my dad retired. So, you know, I'm not one of these guys that the carpenters and the electricians at work fight all the time. I'm just like, dude, if I applied for a job on a Thursday instead of a Tuesday, I would have been a plumber or a carpenter. You know what I mean? So we're all the same people. We're just working stiffs. So.
I was just gonna say, I don't know too much about, even though I was in a union, I don't know too much about unions in general. Like I said, ours was
in New York City, man. You know, it's
okay, there you go. Maybe ours in Michigan was a lot different. I
couldn't. Yeah. So Marcus, I'm not fighting with you. You know, I'm pretty easygoing. Asking everybody. So you say you Reaper Destroyer you created in your 20s.
Shut up, phone. My phone is always listening to me. I don't know why it always thinks I'm talking to it.
Yeah, I learned the hard way to turn off my phone before the alarms and people start calling me.
Like, I've always got it on vibrate, so it's not going to, you know, interrupt the shows. But like, Siri every once in a while will jump through and
we went live. If you're watching me, I'm like, who the hell's calling me now? I got a large family, so I'm always nervous whenever the phone rings. Oh, who
right?
Car accident? Who died now?
Yeah, I created the character probably when I was 23 or something like that, 22, 23. I can't remember exactly. And honestly, it was by accident almost that I created created a Reaper Destroyer. What I used to do back in the day is just draw. And I didn't spend a lot of time drawing other people's characters. One, because I didn't think I could draw their characters as well as my favorite artists would draw the characters. So I would just spend a lot of time just drawing my own kind of characters. Whether they ever stuck or not, it didn't matter. I just draw something and, you know, design something.
Were you into drawing like superhero characters, fantasy?
Characters? Yeah. It was always superhero or fantasy or monsters or, you know, so that's what I like to draw, you know, in that kind of realm. And I drew this character one day, just kind of standing in a general kind of pose, holding two guns out to his side, and just kind of like this intimidating pose. And I put a trench coat on him at the time, and, you know,
trench coat is so cool.
Yeah, you know, back in the day, like, he doesn't have a trench coat anymore because I redesigned him to have like a cape, because when I kind of tweaked the story, it didn't make sense for him to have a trench coat anymore. But when I first designed the character, he had a trench coat, and he had these two guns, and he was kind of, to me, a combination of like the Punisher and Moon Knight back then.
Oh, two awesome characters. There you go.
Right. I'm just, I'm thinking of it as I'm drawing. I'm like, oh, it'd be cool to have this, have that.
And I'm picturing this some heavy metal blasting as you draw in this,
Most likely. It's back then. So I got into the band after, as far as that version of the band. Previously, I'd been in other bands. Like I was in an alternative band. I was in a heavy band. Throughout your teenage years, you switch up styles of music depending on what everybody's into at the time. But yeah, so I mean, I drew the character and I liked it, and I didn't know anything about it. But I'm staring at the character, and for some reason, the name Reaper Destroyer just came to my head out of nowhere, and I'm just like, huh. I was like, that's kind of unique and like odd. Like when you say it, it just kind of sticks with you. I didn't have any idea what the character was or what I was going to do with it, but I just saw it and I was like, a Reaper Destroyer. There it is. And it kind of it sat there for a while. I liked the design, and it just kind of sat there as I was doing other things. There was another character I was working at the time, which I'm actually going to introduce as well down the line, that I was kind of more into as I was drawing. But I kept coming back to the Reaper Destroyer design. I was just like, there's something about it that's cool. Like it just has this kind of like dark feel. And at the time, David Finch's Moon Knight was just hitting the shelves, and I was just kind of starting to get into David Finch as an artist. And so I'm looking at my character, and I'm like, it kind of reminds me a little bit of Moon Knight specifically, and I say, when I say that I designed him to look like Moon Knight and the Punisher, that may or may not be timeline wise completely honest. That's just kind of what I remember, because it was around a similar time that book was coming out. And so, but regardless, that's kind of where it went. Like, and I took the character and started kind of putting a vague story to it. At the time also I was into the show Ancient Aliens, was really big in the early 2000s. Everybody was getting into it, and you watch it every Thursday or whatever on the History Channel.
Call me down because I have a degree in ancient history, so he would watch the pyramids and John.
What do you think of this?
What do you think of this? I was like, yeah. I said there's 9,000 Egyptologists in the world, and 8,999 of them say this. But that guy gets.
But that dude with the crazy hair is like
the other guys, the bored guys who can actually design it and explain it. Whatever. Yes, Ancient Aliens. I love that show.
So I got into the show. It was a cool show. I'm somebody that really likes to think. Regardless if something may or may not be true, I enjoy letting my mind think of the possibilities of the what ifs.
Like I tell people, I love a good conspiracy theory. I don't necessarily believe them,
right?
But I love a good conspiracy theory, and I love talking to people who are into conspiracy. It gets the juices, and it's fodder for a comic book script.
You just like me, man. We probably think very much alike, and I at the time I took that. And then I just kind of took concepts that I liked at the time and threw them all together. I didn't really know how to write a comic book, but I'm just like, I'm gonna put a story together. This dude gets alien armor, from ancient aliens that left it on Earth, and this or that, and threw some stuff together. And then I tried to put that book out, and granted, probably looking back, by the way, if anybody backs the campaign and backs a supplemental book, I'm gonna reprint the original book I put out in 2007. In that book,
so that'll be the Earth 2 version of Reaper Destroyer.
Yeah, you get a chance to see kind of like where it all started, even though the story is vastly different now. You get a chance to see kind of what I was doing in 2007 and how it all started.
The Golden Age version, we got.
Yeah. But what I took from that book were the characters. When I tweaked the story and everything, because I really enjoyed the characters that I created. The story might have just been like storytelling, but the characters were awesome. With the main character, Reaper Destroyer, who he was, which was Matthew Walker in the suit. One of the main villains back then, Victor Reigns, who was kind of like this kingpin, personality within the story. Oh, you're fine, man. I know you're sick. I hope you feel better, by the way.
Yeah.
Being sick sucks.
Yeah.
I had a female character named Chaos. I had these 3 demon witches, sexy, no-face witches named the Sirens. So I took everything that I liked about the book and I brought it into modern day. And when I say modern day, let me back up just a little bit. So when I got into music, I got into a lot of things, a lot of conspiracies. I went down a lot of rabbit holes, doing a lot of drugs, doing a lot of soul searching or whatever, and because it helped write music. It came up with interesting concepts for lyrics for songs and stories I wanted to tell within the songs that we were doing. And I had gotten into so much stuff that you can't help but take that and be like, man, some of this would be a really cool story.
Yeah,
You
that's
know,
why I think a band long enough they make a rock opera album, because they want to tell a story. You know what I mean?
right.
Yeah, a
Yeah.
concept
So
album or something. You know,
yeah, the concept albums, yeah, right.
you turned it into a comic book. That's cool.
I kind of did like everything I got into at the time, the normal conspiracies you get into. And then I was into, a ton of things when it came into like inner earth theory. I'm a Christian, so I got into biblical conspiracies as well, like the gap theories and all this kind of stuff. And
The
it
gap
just all
theory, I don't know
formed.
that one.
So the gap theory is actually one of the backing stories, I guess you could say, of my book, because I created a universe, and I tried to create a universe from a beginning to an end concept, because I'm big on the like Tolkien and George R. Martin, the guys that can
It seems like I'm
create
gravitating towards people with the same, they love world building. They love
world building. Yeah, world building.
You know,
It's
I could listen to this stuff all day. I love it.
and I love that. I love the idea of having times, ages of the world, so I kind of built that within my mythology, and that's what I want to do. I want to kind of create my own mythology within my superhero universe, where it's a universe that's still based in the real world, but also has different mythologies kind of weaved in, and I just kind of pull things that I like and kind of put it in, like, all right, this happened, or this happened in my world. Excuse me. I'm not sick, but I'm coughing.
It's contagious through the
I was
internet.
just gonna say, yeah, you're making me sick.
Yeah,
Right here, we're too close. But the gap theory. So the gap theory is this theory. If anybody has read the Bible before, in the very beginning, Genesis, the first book of the Bible, in the first chapter, first verse is, God created the heavens and the earth, and then it goes into describing the creation of the earth. Well, there's a theory that the gap between when God creates the earth and the time that he creates Adam, the first man, that there was actually a creation before that was populated by the what are they called in the gap theory? The Adamites, I think is what they call them, but it's like the pre-Adamites, like the people before Adam.
Okay, I gotta look this up. This is cool.
There's some verses in the Bible that kind of allude to maybe people existing before Adam was, and they kind of created
like who
great cities, great cities, and like all this kind of stuff, and there was like a world, and they became wicked and were destroyed before the creating of Adam. And I also thought that was an interesting concept, right?
Yeah, it is. It's a really cool idea.
That like all this stuff could have happened, before modern history, if you look from a creationist point of view, which is what I do. And I'm like, all right, so if you had a group of people that lived back there, who knows untold time, because a lot of Christians, some Christians might think the young Earth theory, where it's from the time Adam recorded in the Bible to now,
years or something like that.
Yeah, like 5 to 6,000 years is the length of the Earth, and then you've got like science talking about millions of years and all this kind of stuff. And a lot of times people clash over it. To me, I'm like, if there was a gap theory, you do have a way to say that the Earth is much older. Yeah, is much older without.
Really cool.
Yeah, exactly. Without kind of denying anything that you read in the Bible. Like there are periods of time.
It kind of it's like a good writer of a comic book will find some old story and then weave in another layer into it without changing anything, which is the right way to write a comic book, not just supersede the other guy.
So I'm thinking, and this isn't really spoilers to the book, it's just I tend to talk more about the creating of the world that I'm making than the actual story of the book, because there's some mystery involved in the first issue that I have a hard time talking about, because I want you to read the first issue.
Yeah, you don't want to give it away. Yeah,
right. And then after the first issue is over, I can dive more into the story where we're going after that, but it's hard for me to talk about specifically what the book is about, because I feel like it's going to get spoiled, because there's some things that you need to know. I
understand what you're saying
when you read it. So I'll talk a lot about the world building, and so I decided, I'm like, I'm going to create a lore, ages of the world. And I like this theory of this gap theory. I don't call it that in the book. I'm just telling you what I based it on. And so I'm like, I want to create a race of immortal humans, because I love immortals, right? Growing up, Highlander, all that kind of stuff. It's just, I've always really enjoyed that story, because
the elves, you know what I mean? Yeah.
Exactly, yeah, Lord of the Rings and all that kind of stuff. Like playing with immortal characters is great because it gives you so much freedom to put them in different eras, tell different stories. My story is very much modern day, but we will bounce as we tell the story going back and forth. We will bounce back to different times and see what those characters did at these times, and how that might relate to the modern day aspect of them as well.
We synchronized coughing. There we go.
Yeah, the Earth was formless.
I'll put it back up.
Without void. My theory is there was another cycle of people that nuked the world, and we're living in different a cycle. That's kind of what the gap theory was. Like the gap theory was that it was destroyed, like the God himself destroyed it.
The golden age, the silver age, and the age of bronze.
And that he recreated the earth, which is the creation of the earth that you read of in chapter 2, I think it is, of the Bible. And that's when he recreated it and gave it to Adam, and then started the new direction of the world. But that back in the day, that there were possibility of all these different races of people or things that might have existed. So I'm like, that's a great idea. I'm gonna take them and put it into my book. I'm gonna make these races of characters called the Elder Sons, and they will have had this whole lifetime before modern day history where they achieved the height of technology. In my world, I'm basing that this is where
the Numenoreans.
Yeah, exactly. This is where the city of Atlantis and like all these modern or ancient megalithical things were created, and like technologies that we have a hard time figuring out how the heck they built them back then. But like, well, it's easy. These people way back in the day technology wise, and eventually through wars or whatever, they destroyed themselves and this or that, so I have those characters built into it. And the Elder Sons, after they were destroyed, and I have to skip over some of the stuff because some of the stuff is to be discovered, how things happen.
Right. You can't give
within the story, right? Yeah. But so that is the kind of mystery. But I will say that the Elder Sons emerged
so bad. I could tell.
I do. Like I tell my friend Kayla, who is another co-host on my show, and we go over story all the time because she's a writer, and I just do my brain dumps with her and tell her the things I'm working on and whatnot. And it's fun because I get in these moments. I just want to be like, and this happened, and then this happened, because I love the world building. I just want to tell you history. And so when I go on shows like this, I have to be really careful because I will get lost. I'll lose myself for a second.
Yeah. I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying it. I'm wearing a shirt right now. Brian Bow of Wolf and Batsy. I've been wrecking his ear with my world building for the past year. And he knows all the secrets of my world. And I'm like, is this a cool idea? And he's like, yeah, but start telling me about characters.
Right. Yeah. Well, I will tell you, if anybody watches any of my interviews, I've gone to other people's shows over the last year, I know I put spoilers out there, which is why I know what not to talk about, so it's probably out there, but the majority of people probably don't know. But in the story, the Elder Sons reemerged after the race of Adam was created. And when they realized that their DNA and their look matched up to what modern humans look like, they kind of intermingled themselves within humans. And through that, they were able to kind of take the royal bloodlines. Like they became the royal bloodlines. So, what people like call like, I was just going to say what people call like the Illuminati or any of these secret societies through centuries were in my world are the Elder Sons. They're the ones, they're the secret societies. They're the ones controlling the world behind the scenes, directing wars and, anything that they posed as gods, they posed as kings, pharaohs, all this kind of stuff, presidents, rulers, all that kind of stuff throughout the world. And I built that into that mythology of like, these are the Elder Sons. Like, that's what they do. I can kind of touch into like the secret societies within my universe.
So you like me with your wife, you're having dinner with your wife and you tell them the story and she's just like, would you like more mashed potatoes?
Oh, I'm sure my wife is sick of me talking about stuff over the time, and very patient. Will sit there and I'll just be like telling her about these things. Be like, I'm gonna do this. And like, it would be really cool. If this character represents this.
You're gonna learn how superpowers work.
Yeah. So there's a lot built into the world of Reaper Destroyer, and this is all before you even get to the main character, Matthew Walker, who is a human in present day. And in the character, in the story itself, what I can tell you is that Matthew Walker, he kind of wakes up no long-term memory of who he is. He's got some short-term bits and pieces of who he is, and anytime he kind of I kind of say like PTSD, which is not really PTSD, but it's the best way I can describe it. There are times within the story where he will be in the middle of something, say it's a fight or whatever, and he'll just kind of disappear for a second and go into this nightmare version of whatever it was that kind of put him in this suit that you see him in. And he's very much imprisoned in this supernatural suit of armor that people call the Reaper Destroyer. He doesn't really know why, but every time he gets a chance to kind of find out, it's revealed in bits and pieces through this kind of nightmare version that he's seen. And as we go forward in the story, you're going to see that nightmare get clearer and clearer, as to see, as he finds out exactly who he is and what happened to him. Besides all that, there is a character named Apophis, who is the ancient spirit of death, who was trapped inside the suit with him, who was trying to possess his soul. So they are all constantly at odds with each other, basically enemies. They're forced to work with each other because they both have found themselves imprisoned in this suit of armor.
What was the character's name?
Apophis.
Apophis.
Now, there's a story behind that. I'll tell you in a second.
Sure.
But they find themselves.
I got my guest sick. Oh, jeez.
No, you're fine. You're fine. I have allergies and stuff, and in my studio down here gets very stuffy at night, very dry, which is why I bring water down so I can drink it while I'm talking, because my throat will get real dry.
Sure, take it.
But Matt finds himself kind of thrust into this world, and as he figures out that now he's dealing with demons and mortals and all these characters that want to kind of basically capture him and possess his power for whatever means, he's got to unravel this mystery of who is he for one, how do you get in the suit of armor, and who can he actually trust? And that's a big issue in my book, is a trust factor. Everybody's got a motive to do something, and we don't quite know what it is. And we present the story through the eyes of Matt and through the eyes of Apophis.
Okay.
And so Apophis knows stuff that Matt doesn't know, and you as a reader will know a few things that Matt doesn't know through Apophis, because they're always kind of playing people to kind of, it's almost like a chess game, right?
Okay.
You're playing each other to try to get into position to get what you want out of stuff. So the idea of the book is very much like, who can you trust in this world of immortals and monsters,
Sounds pretty cool, pretty in depth.
Yeah, once the actual first issue comes out, it'll be nice to actually talk when people read it, and you see what I've set up and you see where we're going. I can be like, okay, now that this is out, boom, here's the story. This is what we're doing. We're going to go in this direction. Issue 2 is going to go here.
Now, is this a continuing story? Do you have a finite end?
Yeah, it's a continuing story. Broke down into story arcs. So basically, I like comic books, right? So I want to make an ongoing comic book story that are going to have story arcs, and usually probably 4 to 5 issue story arcs. So the first story arc I think is going to be 4 issues, and then we will continue the story going forward with the direction I have going after that. I've got 25 issues planned right now.
Wow, good.
But my world could probably push me all the way up to 100 with all the different possibilities of things I can do and characters I'm going to introduce. Like, there's a ton of characters not in the first issue that will be brought in issue 2 and issue 3 and issue 4. Like, there's a ton of characters I've created in my life that I'm going to bring into this universe.
I think we're very similar in the fact that we came from different angles. I played role-playing games with my buddies for since we were 11, and I've been creating this superhero world. And of course, everybody's like, wouldn't it be cool if we made a comic book about our role-playing games? Well, I'm making a comic book.
There you go.
None of the characters in my story are my friends' characters. Those, I feel, they belong to them.
Right. There you go.
So that's them. As a matter of fact, one of my buddies is making his own comic on argocomics.com. So check that out.
Nice.
But so I have this literally world for that I've been created for like 40 years, So
wow.
In this Sunday on Sunday Comics at 10 a.m. If you come here, I'm just tell it about the world. I feel I can tell about the world, because that's not going to give away stories about the character.
That's all I try to do as well. Like, I feel like I can at least talk about the world and certain things without giving too much away.
Yeah, so that's what I'll be doing Saturday. I'll give away secrets about the world. But my first issue I wrote, and it was all about the nature of superpowers and everything. And then I realized it was going to be I thought it would be a hard jumping on point. So I pivoted and I made my first issue mostly about a character. So I feel it's like the tip of the spear or the tip of the iceberg. You're gonna like this character. I guarantee you're gonna like this character if you like superheroes. And then the second issue, okay, I already like this, and then slam him in the face with some world building, and then So I think we're very similar. It seems like
it sounds like
it is about this world that we can't wait to tell people.
Yeah, I'm chomping at the bit, and I'm
almost
done with the book. I'm almost done with the book. As soon as it's out, I can't wait because one, I want to get feedback on the book itself, but I'm looking to actually go forward and be
how long did it take you from picking up that pencil and saying I'm done with one issue?
So far it's taken me over a year right now.
Okay.
And some factors are my dad was really sick about a month ago, went in the hospital for a month, and I took time off from doing anything just to kind of be there. It was a pretty serious situation, but he came out of it, is back home. Good. So yeah, all praise to God with that. And now I'm jumping back into it and put the finishing touch on the book. I'm working on the last page right now.
Oh,
the supplemental book is completely done. I think there's a couple pages that still need to be colored, but basically completely done and ready to go. So,
and you said the campaign is active right now. When do you plan on delivering?
As soon as I get done drawing the rest of the book, the last page, I just have to have my colorist catch up, which I think he's only like 5 pages behind, so it's not that big a deal. He should be able to knock that out. And then however long it takes me to get the letters back from Eric Weathers, who is doing the main book. Then I've got other guys.
My book,
Yeah, he's amazing. He's amazing, which he's pretty fast too.
And it was funny. I don't know what I'm doing, and he answered all my questions, and he was very helpful, and he calmed my crazy ass down, which I appreciate.
I mean, right now my dream goal is to try to start getting books out as early as Christmas.
Oh wow!
But we'll see. There's a lot of moving parts, and I've never been through the process.
Yeah, you're learning as you go along too.
Yeah, I'm learning as I'm going. Like how long do things take? How long does it take to
let me
go
ask
through the printing process to get your books together?
Good. Everybody helping you out?
Yeah. The community has been great. There's always people there willing to give you advice from what they've gone through, and I'll return the favor too once I go through it.
Yep.
And have seen what it's like myself, but.
Matt Barrow always says, everybody grab an oar, and I'm trying to grab an oar. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You got a campaign? Come on my channel. Let's talk about it. I want to help everybody. I think that's fun.
Yeah, but
I don't want to be with the mainstream where they're backstabbing everybody and trying to cancel somebody so they can take over their $60 job at Marvel. You know what I mean?
What I see is, focus on when you got to focus on. There's a lot of drama that will still pop up even in the indies. Even in comics, there's still drama that comes out.
I try to
stay. It's just like I put my head down. I work. Yeah, I work on what I need to work with and get the stuff out. Like my goal is to make comics, to make a company, to make multiple titles out of that company as we go forward.
So all of your titles going to be in the same universe? Yeah.
Because
it sounds like you put a lot of work into you. And then my other universe.
Yeah. Well, so my company is called Superior Press, so that's where the books are going to come through with a Superior Press stamp on it, and it's basically the Superior Press universe. Reaper Destroyer is the flagship title, and that's kind of how everything is going to be introduced and based on. That's how we introduce the world. So the lore of the world, the history of the world is going to be through Reaper Destroyer. Any character that comes through is going to have some kind of relation to that, or at least will come into the world that's already been created, so what's going on. And so everything should fit seamlessly within the world I've created. I don't see myself going outside of that world.
Well, it's one man, you know what I mean? It's not like Image where they tried to have a shared universe, but then fractured off into Wildstorm and whatever, extreme.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So, and that's kind of what, even in Image, when they had the 7 or 6 different companies within Image, every studio still had its own universe that loosely fit all together in the overall Image universe. But I still watched how a lot of those studios grew their studio and added different titles and how that fit in with their titles in that, like Wildstorm or Extreme Studios or whatever, or Top Cow, how that fit in. And so that's very much what I'm trying to do. Like I have a ton of characters. Some characters are going to be directly related to the story of Reaper Destroyer, and then other characters that I will just introduce that will fit into the world and will make sense because I just have crafted the world around everything,
Cool. You have a printer selected and your everything like that?
I'm working on one right now. Yeah. Like, do your due diligence, go out there,
Yeah.
see what the
I'm
best
learning
print
what
is.
I don't know right now. Yeah.
Yeah, talk to people, see who they like, who they don't like. It's funny because some people can have a really good experience with this printer, and then the other people will be like, "Don't go to that printer,"
Yeah,
because they
I'm
had a
hearing a lot
horrible
of that,
experience.
and I don't know who to believe. So what I do is I look at their comic. This comic is really freaking awesome. So you know what I mean. That the proof is in the pudding, right?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. And basically, when it comes down to it, you pick out who you want to pick out. You go talk to them, and you hope that your experience goes well. And if it doesn't, you don't go them next time.
Right.
That's pretty much how it
I don't
is.
want my first issue to be messed up. You know what I mean? You know,
Well,
how many chances do you get to make a first impression? You know.
and here's the thing too. As much as that sucks, you got to kind of also, which what I'm doing right now is prepare yourself to roll with the punches. What is your plan if you do run into issues? Because I've seen a lot of people, Rini, you'll run into the issues with her. I think it was Fiendish 1, or maybe it was Fiendish 2, but one of the issues, she ran into printer issues. It's not her fault, right? But she still has to figure out how to get those books reprinted, and out to the people. So, I think most people are pretty understanding about that, but you also have to have an idea, like, if this goes wrong, what is my backup plan? How do I
Yeah.
handle this? And that's why I try to do that with everything that
Oh, she had like a
we're
faulty
doing.
run of prints or something.
I can't remember exactly what it was that happened. Like maybe the books came and they were printed wrong or they were damaged or something. Because I mean, honestly, when you get the books printed, they have to be shipped to you, and then you
Right.
gotta go check every book to see if there's any errors or if they're dog-eared or if they're damaged in transport. Then you got to figure that out. You got to get them either reprinted or whatever you have to do. So I know that's going to be a pain in the butt when I get my books printed and sent to me, but it's just kind of what you have to do.
Yeah, part of the,
And then you deal with
job.
it. Yeah, you take all the good ones and you're like, all right, I can use these. Here are ones I can't use. I need to get on the phone with these guys and be like, I have 50 issues here that are unsellable. I can't sell these. Like you need to reprint them or whatever. You just go back and forth.
Collectors are prickly pears, man. We want it in box. You know. Yeah.
I see Marcus saying Fiendish 1. Okay, thank you, brother. Appreciate it.
Yeah. So Marcus also asked you, do you draw on paper or do you do digital?
I'm a traditional artist. I like paper. Cool. I like pencil and ink. I do have a couple digital inkers on the book that have come on to lend a hand, so that I can that was able to pick up the slack when I was falling behind. It's way easier for me or quicker for me to draw just pencils. I like to work with inkers, but I've also enjoyed really inking myself lately. So I think that's probably what I'm gonna do going forward with issue 2. It's probably gonna be more just me inking the book and stuff. I got like I think 5 different inkers on this first book. Some big names like Matt Batbanning and Joe Weems from Top Cow, Marla Quiza from Extreme Studios is inking some stuff. I got Corey King, who's been doing some Gunslinger Spawn inks, is on the book. Cool. Chance Wolf, old Todd McFarlane production guy that's inked for Spawn stuff, is on the book as well, doing some stuff.
That is awesome.
Hell yeah, Marcus.
Yeah. Now, are you self-taught? Did you go to art school?
Yeah, I'm pretty much self-taught. Like I said, the kid I met when I was younger, Joe, he gave me a lot of pointers and stuff back then. But after that, it was just me just drawing, and a lot of the stuff.
How to draw comics the Marvel way. There you go.
Yeah, and it's funny because I never even got that book until I was an adult. It was just he had the book, which was awesome, but he just basically taught me everything that he learned from the book. And then my love of comics, I would just sit there, and what I did originally was I'd see my favorite image of something that Jim Lee drew, some pose of Wolverine or Magneto or something. And I'd sit there and I would just try to draw that image, right? And I would draw that image line for line, as best as I could. And that's kind of how I taught myself how to draw. And eventually, everything that I was copying line for line with those guys, I was able to start drawing my own original pictures with, and putting anatomy and movement and all that stuff together. So much so that I had a lot of things I did within my drawings. I had no idea why I was doing them, like cross hatching and lighting. Had no idea what I was doing. It's just because I saw my favorite artists do it. I just instinctually put that within my art, right?
I never wrote a comic before, but now when I'm writing my scripts, I'm just like, describing this and drawing that. I think it's just from 50 years of reading comics. You got to pick up something,
Right. And that's basically what it was. It wasn't until I actually got into my 30s when I started doing this again that I really hunkered down with more technique and studying why I did certain things. I basically skirted along with just the raw talent that I had and the practice I put into things for years. I even remember when I would go to conventions and show my work off, and artists would see stuff and they'd be like, I can see you have a lot of like natural storytelling ability, or you have natural eye for doing this, but I can also tell that you don't quite know why you are doing this, you know, and that would kind of be a lot of their critique. And they'd be like, focus on these things, you know, like why are you drawing this? Why did you shade this area? What's your light sources? And I'd be like, what the heck is a light source? You know, you know, because
what's a vanishing point? You
yeah,
know,
like what are you guys talking about? But I would take a lot of that stuff and try to learn about it, you know. And when I got back into drawing, when I quit the band, lifestyle, music, and all that stuff, I really, for the first time, sat down and started really paying attention to the technique of everything that I'd learned prior, and then really studying, which I'd never done before in my youth. It was just kind of all raw talent because I could draw, you know. And once I actually put the study and the learning together, my art took leaps and bounds with the ability that I could produce after that, because I understood things, you know, for the first time. I actually understood what I was doing. I could now make it better and do it correctly, you know.
That is cool. Good. Yeah. Yeah. So I usually have a hard hour limit because, and especially my throat is killing me. So
I feel you. Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah, I know. I'm like holding in coughs over here. So,
oh, real quick, I almost forgot. So the Apophis story I was going to tell you.
Oh yes. I wanted to ask you about that.
That character has nothing to do with like the Egyptian Apophis that the character is probably most popular, or the name is most popularly known for. I actually chose the name Apophis. The character had a different name back in the day, and I'm not going to say it now because I might repurpose that name for a character later on. But when I was in music, I had a buddy or acquaintance of a bands that we played with down in South Bend, Indiana, and his band's name was Apophis. You know, I also thought that was a cool name for a band. And he unfortunately passed away a few years ago, right when I was getting ready to put the book out, or right when I was getting ready to put the ash can out and put these characters into the world, into print. And I remember last minute I decided to, as a kind of just an homage to my buddy who passed away, change the name of Apophis to Apophis for that reason. And it was just kind of like this last minute thing. I just felt like doing it, you know. So it didn't really make sense as far as like the Egyptian, you know, god Apophis in this book, because it has nothing to do with him. But it was just kind of more of me just saying like, hey, you know, tip my cap to you, you know, sorry that you passed away, I miss you, here's my tribute to you. So this character's name became Apophis instead of what I was going to call him before.
So what is Apophis, the Egyptian god of?
I think he's you know, it's funny because when you actually look into Egyptian lore,
it's rough. It's right.
He's a few different things.
It's like a 6,000-year-old country, so the mythology changes so much. I'm a big mythology guy, but Egyptian mythology confuses me.
I mean, Apophis is, I think, sometimes he's the Lord of the Underworld, you know, but he's also, I think he was also like the brother or something of Osiris. I think he was one of the ones that killed Osiris. I don't know. It gets really convoluted when you look at.
I think he was Osiris, but in another aspect in the underworld. Yeah,
that could have been like I'm not the best at Egyptian mythology. I'll tell you that. Yeah, like it's one of those. It's one of the cultures that I haven't really dove that much into, but it was the name of his band, you know, and I kind of loosely looked up what Apophis was and who he was as a character, and that's just why I know he's from Egyptian lore.
Cool.
But it was basically just an homage to my buddy that passed away.
Hitting all my buttons. First off, it's a comic book, you know, world building, mythology based, you know, and you said you're throwing in some conspiracy theories and everything. This sounds like a comic made for me. You know, I love it.
I'll tell you what, you're like, when I actually get into revealing the story, and down the line when we start talking about some of these characters, these immortals and their lives they lived, the elder sons, the ones that are still alive today that haven't killed themselves off, were the basis for the the pantheons of gods in Greece. Like they were the ones, they were based on these characters. Like I have a character that specifically was, you know, Zeus, and was these characters, because for the time,
the same exact comic book.
Yeah, for the time humans worshiped them as gods because they could present themselves as something more than human, you know. And then when that wore off, they went to do different things and led humanity through being kings and stuff like that, you know. So it's an interesting story. I can't wait to actually really dive into it and talk more about that going down the line.
until you could share the details that people have already read, so you're not spoiled. I've talked to a lot of people that are making comics, and you can just tell they're dying to tell me that the next issue.
Which my favorite part is the story, and the sucky thing is that the people reading the story, you don't get to see where I'm at. Like I'm miles
you said
ahead
you're
of
20
everybody.
issues in. You're 20 issues
like
in.
I'm so far ahead of everybody. I'm like, man, I want you guys to know about this, but you have to know about the beginning first. And sometimes it's maddening because you just want to like speed things up real quick. Like, man, I wish I could just dump all these issues on you right now, and we could just move to a different point in time.
Just today at work, I came up with oh man, this is really good. I could probably fit that in around issue 12 if I change it around. I don't even have issue 1 out yet.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And I'm excited about something that I
same here.
Issue 12,
Same here. Like I said, I got 25 issues, and in the 25th issue, I think is a really cool story, but it's gonna take so long to get there.
Yeah, I know. I know.
It's like it's gonna be cool when I do.
But thanks a lot. I'm gonna get going because I'm sorry I just can't.
Absolutely, man. Hope you feel better.
Oh yeah, thank you so much. So Reaper Destroyer, it's on Indiegogo. Let me put up your link one more time for people to check out.
All right, yeah, check it out, everybody.
You're up to 68,000.
Almost.
Oh my god!
Less than $500
so
away from 68. Yeah,
it's so encouraging. Yeah. I mean, I'm like I said, I just got to ask you one more question.
Mm-hmm.
Is this your full-time job? Do you have a job during the day?
I have a full-time job during the day. Yeah,
which is one of the reasons. Encouraging, the fact that you have a full-time job, you come home, you're a dad, and then you're making comics, and you're up to 68,000. That is awesome.
And I'll say again before we get out of here, the crowdfunding model works so well with the indies because you have to. Most of us work full 40 hours a week,
right?
Have families, and then they're trying to make this book. The crowdfunding helps because it allows you the time and the finances to make the book. We're not trying to. I know there are people out there that wish the books come out faster, and so do we. One day, I hope that this becomes my full-time job. And I can make it a company
anymore. Everybody, please buy my book. My knees hurt.
Right, exactly.
How's that for a tagline? Buy my book. My knees hurt.
I like that. Buy my book. My knees hurt.
But thanks a lot, man. I'm happy for you. It's exciting. It's encouraging. It makes me feel good. You know what I mean? Like, the more rising tide floats all boats is the way I look at it. And we got to get more eyes on crowdfunding. Mike Barron said, like, we need the story that like becomes like the new Phoenix saga or you know what I mean? And now everybody who's into comic books is like, what? This came out of here. This is really good. That's what we're waiting for. Maybe Reaper Destroyer, that comic that's gonna turn the spotlight from over here, because Marvel and DC are dying. Let's be realistic. Maybe the sun will shine over here now. And you'll be the guy that your success. Yeah, I'll ride my surfboard on your wave that you create. I think
I'm there really for it. Let's go.
Excited. And everybody, go check out Reaper Destroyer on Indiegogo. Like you said, it's live right now. When's the campaign end?
Once I start fulfilling, I'll probably leave it open for a while. I was going to end it, and then I had a bunch of people tell me I should leave it open. So again, good advice to listen to people that know what they're talking about.
Make it easy for people to buy your comic. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, because one thing like I hadn't really thought about is they say like once your book actually starts getting into the hands of people and people post it on social media and do reviews or whatever, you're going to generate more sales because people are going to be like, I want to get that book because it's out now. So now if you back the book now at the end of the campaign, you don't have to wait as long for the book to come out for you to get it. You know what I'm saying? So it makes sense just to keep it open until, for as long as I can. Once issue 2 drops, is getting ready to start, I'll probably close the campaign. So it's just one campaign to worry about.
Right. And then have a catch-up tier, back number 2, buy some more back stock of issue number 1. Always make it easy for people to get your stuff,
Yeah.
Comic book people are prickly pears. They want a full set.
Absolutely. Collectors, that's collectors. Awesome. We are collectors. Absolutely.
I've talked to some guys and they wanted me to back their campaign. It's up to issue 3. I'm like, oh, can I get issue 1 and 2? Nope.
Always make something.
Well, then I'm not buying issue number 3 because I'm a comic book person. I need all of them.
Yeah, I would say always have a catch-up tier. Always have a catch-up tier on your campaigns. Even if they're different covers and you want to keep the original covers collectibles.
I can understand that. You want to reward the people that were there first with an exclusive cover. That's cool. I could dig that. You know what I mean? But I'm sorry, you got issue 3 and I can't get issue number 1 and 2. That's
a no-go. Absolutely.
I know you want to be cool and punk rock or whatever, but I want all the comics because I'm a comic book freak. All right. But thanks a lot, everybody. I got to do another.
Yeah, let's get off before you can't talk anymore. Let's go.
All right, thanks a lot, everybody.
See ya.
Bye-bye.